Hi guys, I'm Jesse at StroPro.com, and today we're going to be going through the brand new AD300 Pro from Godox. This is the latest in the Pro Series line, which means it's fully compatible with all of our other strobes, our speed lights, and even some of our LED lights now. So you're just going to need an additional trigger, whether that's Canon, Sony, Nikon, Pentax, Fuji, Olympus, or Panasonic, and you're going to have full TTL, full high-speed sync on this light. And like I said, it's fully compatible with all our other system. So we've got a bunch of new features on here. It's a really unique new design. So let's get in depth and see what's in the box. So we're going to open the box here, and inside you are going to have a bunch of paper and our actual case here. So every 300 is going to come with this case, which is really nice. It's compact, it's got some rigidity to it, so it's not going to get damaged. But we're going to be selling these in kits, like in our traveler bag as well. So you might want to pick up that if you're going to have multiple lights and brackets and everything as well. But first off, let's see what's inside. So we've got our zippered pocket up top here. We've got our battery, which might look very familiar if you have the AD200. So it's the exact same form factor. It will actually work with the 200 battery as well. We'll get into that in a minute. We've got our charging cable. This is our spigot bracket. We've got the actual charger, and then the most exciting part, obviously, is the light itself. And you can see right away just how small this thing is. And it's really exciting. So again, the case is really nice. It's all form fitted for everything as well. So we'll put that away and get into the light. So a lot of you are going to be watching this video trying to make the determination, which light should I buy? Should I get the AD200 Pro, which is a little bit less expensive, or should I spend the extra money and go with the AD300 Pro? Well, there's a number of things to consider here, so let's take a look at that. The first thing you're going to notice is the size between the two. So if I stand them up right here, I actually just measured this, and I've put the bare bulb on the 200 just to give it the best comparison to the 300 here. So this is actually 3.5 inches short, actually 3 inches shorter than the AD200. So that is significant on the height there. On the width, you know, it's a little bit taller on the 300, but they're actually, surprisingly close. You've got the extra battery socket down here, or the place where you put the battery in, which makes it a little deeper, but not a whole heck of a lot. I'd say probably about an inch on the width there. Now, the other big difference that you're going to see is the modeling lamp, and we'll turn this on in a minute here. Whereas on the 200, you cannot have the modeling lamp on with the bare bulb unless we switched over to the Fresnel head, which it comes with. But the modeling lamp in the 300 is a 12 watt. It's much more powerful than the 200. And the great thing about this, and this is a first on any of the strobes, this has a bicolor modeling lamp. So that means that we can dial this thing all the way from 3000, and I believe it goes up to, was it 65, I think it is. I'll double check the specs on that. So you could actually use this for a little bit of video work. Now, I'm not saying this has a ton of power. You're going to throw it in a modifier and be able to shoot like, at f8. But in a pinch, you could do a little bit of video work or tabletop continuous lighting with this guy. It's going to drain the battery quick, but it is possible to do. Other than that, they both shoot at 9 stops. You have 1/256 on the lower end and going all the way up to 1/1. Now, the big difference is going to be obviously in the power. So we have 300 watts versus 200 watts, which is half a stop more or 50% brighter. So that's really where you're spending the money, that and the modeling lamp, I would say. The cool thing is, though, through new capacitor technology, this 300 actually recycles at full power at the exact same as the 200. So that's pretty neat because you can basically switch these batteries between each other. They're not identical batteries, but they are compatible. So I could use the 300 and the 200 and vice versa. So those are a couple of things to kind of take a look at. We've still got the same features. We've got TTL, high-speed sync, all of that stuff. We've just switched basically to a round form factor, and there's a couple adapters that we would need to use to mount Bowens modifiers, just like we would on the 200, and we'll show you that shortly here. So I've got the reflector and cap back on because that's how it comes in the box, and I'm going to remove that. So there is a warning label. You never want to turn this on with the protective cover on here. This is just for traveling. So please, the first thing you got to do is take this off, because if you start popping that or turn the modeling lamp on, you are going to melt that. It is not a snoot, which some people still to this day think it is. Do not use that as a snoot. We sell those separately. So just pull that cap off, and we have our release button, so very similar to a lot of the other strobes like the 600 and the 400 Pro. And we're just going to turn that a quarter turn, and it's going to pop off. Now, when we take a look at this, this is very similar to what we've seen on the AD400 Pro. It has a native Godox mount in here. So although that's great because it's a little bit smaller diameter, it is not great because 99% of the world does not use Godox mount speed rings. So somehow we need to get this to a Bowens ring so we can use all of our Strobe Pro, or if you have other modifiers that use the Bowens mount, then we want to be able to do that. There's a couple ways that we can do it, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But I just wanted to show you kind of just a walk around on the outside here. We've still got our optical slave up on the top, so we can fire this optically, which we'll go through in a minute. We're fan cooled again here, and that fan will come on when it gets hot and it senses that it needs to. But you'll also notice that we have no way to mount this to a stand right now. So the way that you can do that comes in the box is with this little adapter, and it's basically the same as the 200 one. We've got a couple notches there, and we've got the notches in the 1/4 inch thread over there. So we're just going to line those up. And if you just wanted to use this right out of the box, you're not worried about any modifier, you just want to fire it with your reflector on, we could throw that back on there. Now we can mount this to the stand, and then we just have our battery. So we've got our protective cap here, and you'll see a V-notch groove in there, and that groove is just going to line up to the groove in the bottom of the battery housing. Push it straight in, and it's going to lock in. If you need to remove that battery, you're just going to push the release over here, and it's going to release the spring, and it's going to pop out. Our battery charger over here is really straightforward, just the same as most of the other chargers. Plug this in here, and then the other end into the wall, and just match up the contacts, and you can charge your battery, which takes about 2 to 2.5 hours when it's completely dead. Now, saying that, when you have a fully charged battery, you are going to get about 320 full power flashes off this, which is actually really impressive off of that battery. And you'll get a lot more actually if you're not using it full power. So if you're like most people, you'll use a general mix. We want to be able to put our Strobe Pro modifiers directly onto this light. In order for us to do that, we need to attach an adapter to it so it'll be able to accept that speed ring directly. Now there's two options that we can do with this, and you'll see on the website there's a drop down to add Bowens ring, or you can add the S2 bracket. I'm going to show you the Bowens adapter first of all, and then we'll take a look at the S2 bracket. So when you add the Bowens bracket, what you're going to get is this two-piece right here, and then you're going to get the actual ring receiver here. So there's a very specific way that we need to put this piece on, and it's friction fit. There's two clips on here, and we want to be careful we're not flexing this unnecessarily because we do not want to break this. So first of all, what we need to do is make sure that this extended flange here is on the back of the strobe. Now this piece is the bottom piece, and the reason that we know that is because it has a little notch right there where the other one doesn't. And the reason that is there is to fit around our stand mount bracket. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm just going to slide this on, and there's a notch, and you can see kind of right here, there's a notch right there, and then on the bracket there's another one. So you're going to know you're lined up when that slides into place, and it's going to fit flush right around there. So once we've done that piece, we're going to take the other piece, again, making sure that that flange is on the back. And they're basically just going to slide into each other. So hook one on there, and then hook the other one on here, and they're going to come in tight. And if it's not sitting in the little groove, just make sure it's lined up and sitting in there flush now. Okay, so after we've done that, basically what we're going to do is just take this piece, and this has the actual Bowens receiver in it. And what I need to do is find the release switch on that. So that little piece that slides back, then I'm going to go and find where we just covered our release over here, and they need to line up as well. So there we are. That's going to just push right onto there. And once you get it all secured on there, there's 2 screws in the top and 2 screws in the bottom. And your screws are going to be in this little package, and you have an Allen key. I'm not going to install that fully right now. But from there, we can put on any Bowens adapter. Obviously, the downside of that is it makes the strobe a little bit bigger. You've lost some of that size advantage that you had before, but it's still quite small overall. So let's pop this off. And again, if you had done this fully, you would have to remove the screws. But here's another kind of cool thing. This is a Profoto adapter. So if you happen to have Profoto lights, we also have this for Elinchrom and Broncolor as well. So we would just do the same thing, basically line that up, and then this would push on here, line up the 2 screws. Oops, I'm backwards here. It's going to push on, and now we've created a natural Profoto mount where we could just slip on our Profoto softboxes and stuff directly as well. So that's really cool, and you can add these. They're the same ones that fit the AD300 Pro, so they are interchangeable. If you happen to have a 400, you can use the same ones. So that's the Bowens adapter process, but let's take a look at another process. And I think as we've kind of experimented with this light, most of us at the shop here are kind of leaning towards the other option. What I need to do is I need to take off our stand mount, and we're going to take a look at the S2 bracket. Now this came out about 6 months ago. And it was originally designed for the V1 speedlight, which is a round head. So unlike the old one, it was just flat. You could put speedlights in it. This now has this piece that slides right out of there. So now we could put our V1 in there, but we can also put in this 300 Pro, which is really nice. So we would just go in from the back, make sure we've pulled that all the way up, and I should go up a little bit more. Slide that in, and the really cool thing about this is you can control your depth a little bit more. So if I wanted the modeling or the flash tube to protrude a little bit more into the modifier, I would just slide it forward, or I could slide it back wherever I want. So we'll just tighten that in there. And that's all there is to it, to have our full Bowens catalog of softboxes and different modifiers, reflectors, everything fit directly on this. The other cool thing is we have our stand mount already on there, so that just folds down. And we've got our handle that kind of pushes out of the way. We've got an umbrella mount here as well. And the cool thing is that you could actually just leave this on your modifier. So if you use like a beauty dish all the time, you could just leave this locked on to your beauty dish and in the bag that way. So then this is still going to fit in your case and not take up very much room at all. So those are the 2 options to add our Bowens modifiers on there. Whichever one you select, they're both going to work great. So if you don't care about the extra size, then the Bowens adapter is a great way. Or if you want to save some space, just be a little bit quicker, you could go with this one as well. So I just wanted to demo what I was talking about with the S2 bracket there. I've got a 25-inch beauty dish here, and we've got our Bowens speed ring on there. So like I had said, this will just, we're gonna line up the bones prongs there, and we could just leave this on. So that's locked on there, we're ready to go already with that. And this would not take up much space at all to fit in your bag that it already comes with. So we could collapse this down really easily just by pushing that. So if you don't want to take up extra space with your light, you want to keep this in like your camera bag or like our traveler bag, not with a bunch of bulky modifiers, you could easily do that and just keep it protected in a more secure bag. But to attach this, I'll just pop this back in again. We'll just bring the handle down here, and then we would again just take our light straight in there, tighten it down, and now we're ready to go with our AD300 mounted directly into the beauty dish. So a lot of people always ask us, what stand should I use for a particular light? Well, with the 300, because it's so small and the ultimate goal of this thing is likely space savings, and you're probably going to be traveling around with this because that's really what it's designed for. Going with something portable like our 7-foot auto air stand here is a great option, or we have a regular 7-foot, or if you want ultimate compact, you could go our 7-foot to go. That's going to be more than adequate to hold this light with like a smaller modifier. If you want to go up to some bigger modifiers, say like a 32 by 47 or a 47-inch octagon, then I'd probably go up to our 9-foot. But if, like I said, if space savings is your biggest concern, going with something like this is for sure going to hold this because we're only a couple pounds on the actual light here. So we're going to put this on another stand here, and we're going to get ready to show you all the menu functions in here. But to add this to the stand, it's the exact same way that you would do with the S2 bracket. You would just back off your screw here, and to mount onto a stand, it's really easy. All of our Strobe Pro stands use a reversible spigot, and you would just pop this on. Again, I need to back that all the way off, but it would just go straight on here. Once it's flush on there, you're just going to tighten it down, and you've got that on like that. Another really popular stand actually is our super boom. So you can send this light way up with just a handheld boom. So if you're at a wedding reception or an event where you don't have the ability or want to put down the stand because it's going to get knocked over, then our super boom is also definitely something you want to take a look at. So we're going to power the light on now, and we do that just by holding the power button. That's so you don't accidentally turn it on when it's packed away in your camera bag. So when we first turn on here, we're going to be in wireless mode. So we're going to turn that off because I'm going to show you how to use the controller with it in a minute. I'm just going to go to my wireless here. And now we're just in manual mode, and that's indicated by the M at the top there. We can also see our battery level over here. We have our auto power off, and we have our beep on. So in its simplest form here, all you would do is go to the actual power wheel over here, and we would just scroll this wheel up. So 1/256 is going to be its minimum power. And that's fantastic for these lights in the Pro Series because that enables you to use really fast prime lenses. So a lot of newborn photographers love that because you can get the light down really low in its power level. And as you go up, you can adjust this in 1/3 or 1/10 increments. And 1/1 is going to be full power. So the only way to trigger this in the manual mode without the controller would be as if you plugged in a PC sync cable, which you can do over here, or you could use the optical slave, which is up on the top. And the way that we would do that to turn on S1 or S2, we're just going to go into our menu function here. So this 3 dotted line, which is a new button on this strobe, we're going to push that, and we're in F1, and we just want to scroll the wheel through. So the second one there is F2. And we can see S1, S2. I'm going to push this wheel in. It's actually a button as well. Once I push it in, it's going to blink, and I would want to turn that to S1 if I didn't have a controller. Now I can just back out by pushing the menu. Now this is looking for another flash to trigger it. So that could be pop-up flash on your camera, another speed light. Basically any light that's within line of sight of this sensor, it's going to fire. So if you haven't picked up the controller yet and you're just kind of playing around with this is the mode that you would want to be in to make sure that it works. Obviously using the controller is a much better option, much more reliable, and we're going to show you that in detail in just a few minutes. One of the really cool features about this new strobe is the brand new LED bicolor modeling lamp in it. So it's the first strobe to have this, and we activate it by pushing the modeling lamp button down on the bottom left. And we've turned the lights off just so you can see this on the back wall there. When I push it once, you can see all of a sudden we've got light projecting here. Now to control the modeling lamp, I'm going to hold the button in, and my first button, or my first number that's flashing there, is my power level. So we're on full power there, and I can dial that down all the way to 1. Now we'll leave it at 10. You might be able to hear the fan. The more powerful you go on the LED, the louder the fan will get because it's just working a little bit harder. But you can actually go up to 3 hours at full power on this modeling lamp with the included battery. So if I click the button again, I'm going to go down to my color setting, and this is going to allow me to go from 3000 all the way up to 6000 degrees Kelvin. So 6000 is going to be more on the blue side of light. You can see it a bit on my hand there too. And 3000 is going to be on the yellow side. So you can set that wherever you want. Usually you're probably going to want to keep that somewhere in the middle. I would say 5000 is going to give you like a natural looking light there and better for skin tone. So you can lock that in again, and if we just leave it, it's going to automatically go back out, or we can just push the modeling lamp. We'll turn it off just by pushing it once, or we can just hit the actual menu button to get out of it. And then our save setting is just going to turn on and off. We're not going to have to go and input that every time. So it's something really cool. You could use this for a little bit of video if you needed to. Obviously, I'm not recommending that this is going to replace like an LED panel or something, but in a pinch, you could do some simple headshot or interview style with this modeling lamp. So with the wireless off though, we can go and push our mode button, and you're seeing that that dimmed out there. That's just a battery saving, so it's going to kind of go in and out here. This is multi-mode. So I'm not going to get too far in depth in this, but we do have another video showing exactly how to use this. Basically, this is if you want to capture one frame. Usually it's a longer exposure. So for example, like a dancer on a stage doing some kind of move, or a skier going off a jump. Then you could go in here, you could set your hertz and your number of flashes. And we do that just with our control wheel here. So if I wanted to set it at 10 hertz and I wanted it to go at 5, or we'll go 5 flashes here 5 times. Then if I go and hit the test button, you can see it rattling that off really fast. It's doing it within like 2 seconds here, which is extremely fast. But we are on the lowest power setting there. So as I go up, if I go over to like full power, it is not going to fire that many flashes. One thing I want you guys to keep in mind, that this is not designed to be fired in multi-burst mode. That's not what multi is. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go to continuous high on my camera, put this in multi-burst mode, and I want to fire 12 frames a second because that's what my camera will do, so I'll set it to 12 shots. That is not what this is for at all. So if you use it that way, it is not going to work that way. So check out our full video on multi-mode, and you can see exactly what that's all about. So going back again, that's just manual and multi in our basic modes here. So we're going to just take a quick look at some of the custom functions just before I get into the TTL and wireless triggering. So right now, as we're filming this video, we're on the first firmware version of this light, and that means that we have 8 custom functions in there. These can change, so this video you might be watching, 6 months down the road, and we might have 12 functions in there. So you can always download the latest firmware at strobepro.com, just under our help desk. And you'll see the G3 software there, which is the one that you're going to connect into the USB-C, which is in the side. And you can use a Mac or a PC with this light to update the firmware. So what we'll do is just take a quick look at the custom functions, starting with number 1 here. And again, I'm just using this dial to go through. 1 is probably the first one you're going to want, which is why it's there. It's the beep. So if I go and I turn this beep off and just lock it in, I can go back to the menu. When I fire the light, now it's not making any sound. So we're not getting that recycling beep indication telling us that it is recycling. Now, most of you probably don't need this on. It just gets annoying. And this thing recycles so fast that you really don't need that indication anymore. At full power, this is firing in less than about 1.5 seconds. So it's extremely quick, and obviously at lower powers, it recycles even faster. It's almost instant. So I can go back in again, and I can turn that on just to give you the comparison. When it's on, that's what you're going to hear all the time. And if you're firing fast, that gets annoying. So we'll leave that off. Just scrolling down to off and setting that in. So going to number 2, that is our S1 and S2, which is the optical mode, which we just set previously. I didn't actually mention S2. That's because 99.9% of you will never use it, but it's there in case you do. It ignores pre-flash. So from a TTL flash or red eye reduction, it's going to ignore that infrared burst, and then it's going to fire in sequence. But we're going to be using the controller, or at least I highly recommend that you do, because if you're not purchasing that controller, you're really missing out on half of what this light has to offer. So make sure you pick that up. It's really inexpensive, and you only need one of them to control any strobe or speed light in the Strobe Pro and Godox lineup. So over here we have our auto delay, or our auto turn off, so we can sleep. If we turn it off, obviously it's not going to go to sleep. We can go 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or 90 minutes. So usually like at a wedding or something, I wouldn't even put it on sleep because these batteries actually last quite a long time. And for filming this video, we're going to leave that off. So pushing the controller, if you're connected, would always wake this up anyway. So you can set that if you need to there. F4 is going to be our pre-delay, or basically pre-delay. So we can sequence this flash to fire with another flash. We can delay it by whatever many milliseconds we want there. Again, rarely used, but if you have another trigger or something that you need to sync up with, and they're a little bit off, you can do that right there. So going over to F5 now, this is our mask mode. Again, this is a feature that all of our Pro Series lights have, which is not used very much at all. Basically, you can set up multiple lights to mask out product, and it's easier in post to separate them. So usually you have to have multiple lights to do this. And we have a separate video on that as well, which you can check out to find exactly what masking is all about. But basically, I would just hit the set button, and I can set my N value from N1 to N2, N3, whatever you want there. But we're not going to get too far into the masking because most of you aren't going to use that. Going into F6, this we can roll on here and turn to on. I'm just going to get out. Now what you're going to see is the T value. So this is our T1 value, our flash duration up there. So as I adjust the power, you're going to see that change. Now you can't control that at all. It's just giving you an indication of what your flash duration is there. So if you're someone who likes to see that, then you can leave it on. If you want the screen a little less cluttered, that's no problem. We can just go in and we'll turn that back to off. And then you can see the main screen there where that T value is now gone. Going into F7 here. This is our ID. So this has to do with setting our groups and channels. If you ran into some interference on one of the 32 different channels, then you could go into ID essentially, select a number, and then you would also have to set that number in your controller. I've never run into an issue with this, but if you're in a big environment where there's a lot of other photographers using controllers and you're getting some Wi-Fi interference on the 2.4 channel, then you can set that and that will probably fix that up for you. But make sure actually that if you do set that, you have to set your controller. If you forget that, they're not going to communicate with each other. So that's normally the first place you want to go to see what's wrong with your light. And then the last one right now we have on F8. And if I scroll that, we can just go to the on. And what this is it's our color accuracy mode. So this mode allows this light to go plus or minus 100 degrees Kelvin. So it's extremely accurate. It does cause this light to recycle a little bit slower when you go into that mode. Its normal color accuracy is plus or minus 200 degrees. So for most things, that is plenty accurate. I've never noticed a difference really on 200 that I wasn't getting accurate colors. These flash tubes these days are just absolutely incredible. They're engineered very well. You're not going to get color shifts or anything on there. But if you're working in an extremely color sensitive environment and you just want that extra added protection there, you can go into color stability mode. And again, that's in function 8 right now. And you can see that it's on. We'll switch it to off for this video. And then just to back out, those are all the custom functions. Let's get into taking a look at the controller setup. Now we're going to add the controller, and this is by far the best way to control this light. It's going to allow you to control this in full TTL, high-speed sync, up to 300 feet away. And really, like I said before, it's definitely worth the like 70, 80 bucks to buy a controller because otherwise you're just missing out on too many of the features of this light and the portability of it if you're having to stay connected with a cable or something. So to activate our wireless, we go over to our wireless button here and we're just going to push that once. And now a couple of things have showed up on the screen. We're still in manual mode there, but we have our channel and our group. So if we go over here, we need to set those two things to be able to match them up to our controller. So if I push the channel group button once, what's going to happen is I'm changing my group. So we can set that A, B, C, D, E, whichever one what we want. We'll leave it on A. Now I need to set my channel, and I'm going to hold that channel button in, and then it's going to start blinking. I can go over to my scroll wheel here, and we can dial that to wherever we want. We've got 32 main channels here, and we're just going to set it to 1. I can push the button in here on the dial, and now that's locked in. Remember I mentioned before about ID. If you happen to have set an ID earlier, you're going to have to put that onto your controller as well. I've grabbed a XT controller here, and I'm going to try to hold this as still as possible for you guys. Now this will work with any of our controllers, so the XT, the XT Pro here, the X1 or the X2, any of them. You just need one. You're going to match it up with whatever camera brand that you have, and that's going to enable you to have high-speed sync and full TTL right from the controller. So we set our group to A and our channel to 1. We need to do the same thing here. We happen to already be on channel 1 there. But what I could do if I wanted to is I just go over to the channel zoom button here, and if I hold that down, my channel is going to highlight, and I can select whichever channel I want there. And again, like I said, we're just going to leave that on 1 for now. And I should mention, we have a full controller video on this XT Pro and all of our other ones. So if you're looking for the in-depth full review and instruction manual for this, be sure to check that video out, and we'll leave it in the description below, or you can just actually go to the website and download them all there. So to select our group on here, we're just going to hit our A button here. That means that we're controlling our A group. And if I hit the test button here, we are flashing and we are connected. That's always good to do, just to know that you are connected. One thing I should mention here, you saw that that was just in manual on the strobe and it just went to TTL. That's because the controller is always in charge. So whatever you have on set on the controller is always going to input into the strobe. So if I go over here and I change my mode again, I want to be in manual, but I've got the controller and I sync it up, that's automatically going to change. So just keep that in mind. The controller is always in control. So for TTL here, we've got a couple of different options, and TTL is through the lens. Basically, you can think of this as automatic mode. So what's going to happen when the controller is mounted to your camera hot shoe? It's going to communicate with the light, and it is going to decide the best power of lighting to maintain an adequate exposure. Now, that doesn't always get it exactly right. So say you want something with a little bit more power in it. So we could go over to the light here, or actually to the controller. We're going to select our group here, and we can dial in exposure compensation. So what I'm telling the light is, hey, I didn't like what you decided, I want more power, so overexpose by 1 stop there. Or we can go all the way up to 3 stops on the plus side, or -3 on the negative side if you want to underexpose. So you have a little bit of control in automatic mode there, which can be handy. Make sure you back it back to 0 so you don't forget. Or if you have a camera that consistently, say, underexposes, you could add the exposure that you want here and just leave it. It's going to stay in the memory here. Now, if I want, I'm going to go over to the mode button here, and I'm going to switch the mode to manual, and you see that it's switched there. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm synced up here, so it sent the power level over. Now I can control this light. I was at full power, and I'm going all the way down. One thing that this light does that not every light does is it has an auto dump feature. It's IGBT, so it actually dumps that power internally. You're not going to see a flash. So when my next flash goes, it's already at that lower power. We don't have to dump the charge. Now you can see I can't go any lower here. I'm stuck at 1/28 power, but I know my light goes down to 1/256. That's just being limited by the controller here. So what I need to do is just go into the menu, and we'll just do that really quick, just show you here. And we're going to go to this step setting here in the custom functions. Right now we're at 1/128. We need to change that to 1/256. I just hit the set button and use the wheel here, and we could lock it in there. And now when I go back out, oops, let's see here. I turned everything on, modeling lamp off. Okay. So now I can go back to my A group here, and I can dial all the way down to 256. That other setting that you saw there, we can control that light in 1/3 or 1/10 increments. Right now we're in 1/3 increments. So you'll see just small steps going up. But if we want to control that even more precisely, just again, hit the mode button, or sorry, hit the menu button over here. And we're going to go into our step and then go 1/256.01. And so we'll just get out of the menu again. One more thing I just wanted to show you guys. If you get stuck in the controller, if you're highlighted there, you'll see that we don't have the functions. Just hit the set button and you'll back out to the main menu. And this MOD, that is our modeling lamp. So if I push that, it's going to turn that on. Now it's going to set it to whatever power level and color temperature that we had set in the actual strobe. This is just going to be an all on or all off option. So you can see it turns all the other groups on even though they're not currently functioning. So the last thing that we can do is we can actually go over here, we can hit the mode button, and we can turn this off. The double line means that the light is off. So if we had multiple lights, so a main and a fill, we could turn the main off. It doesn't power it down, it just turns it off so it's not going to fire when you're firing your other light. So again, we've got TTL, our manual off, and we can actually also do multi-burst here. But again, you can check out the full controller video to see exactly all the custom functions and all the features that this controller and the other ones can do. So one more thing on the controller, guys. I'm just going to sync this up again here by hitting my test button. This light is capable of doing high-speed sync, which is fantastic. So you can use it to freeze motion. You can use it to isolate backgrounds and stuff outside in direct sunlight, which is really fun to do. And most of the cameras, when you have your controller on, you have to have a controller to enable high-speed sync. Most of the time when you slide it on and you go over your camera's native shutter speed, which is normally for most cameras 1/200th or 1/250th, you'll just have to check yours. High-speed sync will automatically enable. If it doesn't, we have the sync button over here, and you can just hit sync, and you're going to see the high-speed sync symbol pop up. And normally it would pop up on there. I'm just not connected to a camera right now. But if you need to manually enable high-speed sync, the wireless button, by holding it, will actually turn high-speed sync on there as well. One thing I should mention about high-speed sync is that on the strobe, you're going to be limited to 1/16th power on the lower end. That's just because anything lower than that isn't going to show up in the exposure anyway. So if you're wondering why your power level won't go down below 1/16th of a second, or 1/16th power level, then that's the reason why you're in high-speed sync. So just turn high-speed sync off if you need to go lower in the power level. So there you go, guys. You now know everything there is to know about the Godox AD300 Pro. This is a fantastic little light. Again, you can see just how small it is here, right beside my Yeti mug. It's actually smaller than that, which is kind of crazy. That much power is packed in here. We've got TTL, high-speed sync, the new bicolor modeling lamp. This battery is super compact as well. It's compatible with the other AD200 and AD200 Pro batteries, which is awesome as well. So you can use those backups. It's going to fit all our Strobe Pro modifiers. So whether you want to use softboxes or reflectors, you don't have to go out and repurchase all that stuff to use with this light. And the best part is it works into the X system. So whether you've got Strobe Pro or Godox lights from previous purchases, speed lights, even some of our new LED panels and LED video lights are going to actually work with this controller as well. You definitely want to pick up that controller. It's an investment that's going to control all of your lights. And if you don't have it, you're missing out on half the features of this light. So we've got a number of different packages that are going to be coming online to our website there. So if you want to get multiple lights in our traveler kit or pick up some stands and softboxes with this, it's really just an awesome light. It's a really well all-around light. You can take this anywhere with you, and it's going to shoot pretty much, most portrait, product shots. If you need extra power, you can always upgrade to the AD400 or the 600 or even the brand new AD1200 if you really need to dominate the sun. But I think this fits in a real sweet spot where a lot of you are really going to enjoy this. So check it out at strobepro.com, and until next time, I'm Jesse.